Hello, we are talking about linear inequalities, and we're going to talk about how do we graph them by hand. So first we have to know what a linear inequality is. It's simply a statement such as y is less than 3x plus 4. And we want to make a graph of this. So we should already know how to graph a linear equation. So if we just pretend for a second that this was y equals 3x plus 4, we should be able to graph that because we know that we start with our starting value of 4, and then we would count our rise over run as 3 over 1. So all those same rules are going to apply, but now if we were to graph on an XY axis, it's just going to have a little bit of extra information. So for instance, in this case, because this is a less than sign, it would be a dotted line. And it would have some shading, and less than would have shading beneath of it. And we're going to learn how to make these graphs by hand. Now, before we can really do that, we have to understand that the type of inequality symbol is going to determine some very special and important information for us. So the type of inequality symbol, whether it's less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, that type of inequality sign is going to tell us two different things. The first thing it's going to tell us is whether it should be a dotted or a solid line. And the second thing it's going to tell us is, okay, do I shade above or below that line? So let's first just talk about my dotted or solid line. The only time we have a solid line is if my inequality says or equal to. So right here, less than or equal to, this is going to be solid because it had that or equal to. Again, at the bottom, greater than or equal to, again, is going to be solid because of this or equal to piece. If it doesn't have or equal to, it's going to be dotted. So just a less than symbol is dotted. Just a greater than symbol is a dotted line. The second thing that our inequality tells us is it tells us, should we shade above or should we shade below our line? And how we decide this is we have to ask ourselves, well, is it a less than symbol or a greater than symbol? Anytime it's a less than symbol, we automatically shade below. So a less than symbol, this is going to be below. Less than or equal to, still below because it said less than. But now we have greater than. Greater than is going to be above. And greater than or equal to is also going to be above. So it's really important that you memorize this little chart here because you'll need to be able to decide, okay, is it dotted or solid? And do I shade above or below? Let's do a couple examples. Y is greater than or equal to 2/3 x minus 4. So first we just have to use our inequality to make points on our graph so that we can create a line. So I always start with the number that's by itself, this -4. And now I'm going to count my rise over run. I'm counting my slope. So I'm going to go up 2 and over 3 to make a new point. Up 2 and over 3 to make a new point. So now I at least have my points. But before I actually connect those points, I need to decide, okay, is it going to be a dotted or solid line? And I decide that by looking at my symbol. My symbol is greater than or equal to. And because it's or equal to, I get to make this a solid line. And the last thing I need to do is I need to go ahead and look at, am I going to shade above or shade below? Well, my sign was greater than, so I know I need to shade everything above my line. And now we're done. Let's look at one more example. 2x plus 3y is less than 9. Well, this equation is not in explicit form, which means that the y is not at the beginning of the equation, or the y is not by itself, so I got to do some rearranging to get that y all by itself. So I'm subtracting 2x from each side. And then I'm going to go ahead and divide every single number by 3. So here's my new inequality that I'm going to use. And again, to make some points, I'm going to start with the number that's by itself. And then I'm going to count my rise over run, or my slope. So I'm going down 2 this time because it was negative. But now before I connect my points, I'm going to look at my symbol and decide dotted or solid. Well, this is a less than sign, so it needs to be a dotted. So instead of drawing a line that's all connected, I need to leave gaps in my line so I can make it a dotted line. And, of course, I need to do some shading. So it's a less than symbol, so I know I need to shade below my line, which means I need to shade everything down here.